this ANC briefing now, holding that media briefing after the last 2 days of the National Executive Committee meeting in Boksburg?
Countries where coalitions have not worked, and I'll come back to that. The reason you can't bank on coalitions to fix the deep problems, structural problems of a country emerging from many decades of apartheid and colonialism, actually over 300 years of colonialism. You can't fix those through, you can't invest in coalitions, you can't put all your energy and efforts in coalitions to fix countries that have major structural problems. This is borne by research. And the countries where coalitions have been able to work, there are particular conditions that exist to do that. So then our national conference said to us, first and foremost, when it comes to elections, work for a decisive, clear victory for the ANC. And we are confident, humbling ourselves, working with our people, going into the different areas, even with the local government by-elections, that where we are able to fix the problems, people are able to respond, and they have been responding very well. But there are also areas where we want to pay attention to the issues that people are concerned about. So the conference also said that when you deal with coalitions, you must have one national approach. You can't have different approaches, and in one province does something, or in one municipality they do this, and in another they do something else. You need one approach. Yes, the local conditions will be important to take into account. There must be one national policy. What does the ANC want to achieve in coalition municipalities, and what kind of coalitions do we want to be part of? So that's what the NEC has extensively discussed, and given what conference has said, that if our support is low, completely low, we must be bold enough to go into opposition. This is, and I'm reminding you, it is part of our conference. We took that resolution already, that the ANC can't be in coalition governments for its own sake. It can't just be too desperate to be in coalition governments that are not making a difference for the people, and that when we go into these coalitions, it must really be that there's a possibility to improve the quality of life, and that there's a possibility to build stable government, not just coming in and out. Today you are in, and next week you are out, and then you must take them out, and then they will take you. They'll take you in. And we're not betting. We're now doing a full comprehensive assessment. We also want to go into coalition in these coalition municipalities, hung councils, with parties that are reliable, parties that can commit to very, very specific core values, and some of those core values are being discussed extensively here. Core values of good governance, core value in a stable government, making democracy work for the people, and ensuring that whoever we put in municipalities is to really advance service delivery and transformation. So those important issues will form the framework. But we also extensively reviewed international literature. We reviewed reports. We were able to get some submissions as well. As the team that was leading this process of preparing for the NEC, we received very extensive submissions and proposals. And as I say, we also reviewed what's happening in the world. And one of the important things is that democracies, even major democracies, all democracies, and young democracies are facing crisis, what is called the polycrisis. The different democracies are facing different type of crisis. And the cornerstone of that crisis is that citizens, in many democracies, citizens get dissatisfied. They feel the state has disconnected with them. the democratic state is not meeting their needs. We're able to look at all those issues. And when citizens are not satisfied, what do they resort to? In many areas, they withdraw from electoral participation, very low turnout. You end up with large numbers. The ANC has that experience. A lot of our supporters stay away from voting, and that's really the principal driver of the ANC's decline, is that a lot of supporters of the ANC are staying away. And that is why we're investing all the energy. This new National Executive Committee is investing all the energy to reconnect with the base of our core supporters, to address the issues of concern, the image of the ANC, its renewal, but also its performance in government. Wherever we are in government, people need to see we can fix issues. The issues of electricity that were spoken to by Comrade Sputa and Comrade Mamuloko, and there are other issues we are dealing with at this NEC that we've got to. So there are many challenges facing democracies, but a strong, vibrant democracy, a people's democracy, people-centered democracy, participatory democracy is the one that can confront these challenges. It can rebound, it can reconnect with people, but it can also respond to people's needs. So having looked at all these challenges facing democracy, so one of the challenges facing democracies, including our democracy, is that often people, when they are dissatisfied with existing major parties, they also, so there are lot of new parties formed. There are also parties that get voted for that sometimes are pursuing very narrow ethnic or racial mobilization parties or populist parties. But we are a democracy. We can't complain. So when our democracy is having challenges, we must live up to that. And as we go into the 30th anniversary, we look at this issue of coalitions as one of the challenges of democracy. Coalitions happen because a lot of people don't trust any single party. Voters don't trust any single party to give it a full mandate. Why do voters don't trust any single party to give it a mandate? It is because when they make an assessment, whether you are the incumbent or in opposition, they come to the conclusion that they will not vote for you. So the ANC is spending time fixing that. We know that we know what the other coalition parties are doing. They too are going through a similar crisis. They have reached a ceiling. Most of the opposition parties will not perform above a certain level. Why? Are they looking at coalitions? For them, the savior is coalitions. For the ANC, the savior is to go back to the people. That's why the ANC looks at it this way. So we are not investing in coalitions. We're investing in going back to the people to reconnect with them, to truly respond to their needs. But we also have to fix existing coalitions. There was a tendency generally for people to romanticize coalitions. From 2016, when we had the first big coalitions in the metros, what was the commentariat saying? What the commentariat was saying basically, that South Africa is now a mature democracy. Coalitions have arrived. They were being celebrated. People were celebrating coalitions. They represent the majority of our democracy. What is our experience now? In 2023, big disappointment with coalitions. So, and the point we are making is that coalitions are part of democracy, especially multi-party democracy, but they are not an answer. They can't be an answer to all the problems you have to deal with. And that is why we've got to fix those coalitions that are there. But as a party, we've got to work to reconnect with the people, to regain their public confidence, and not think that coalitions will solve the problems of economic development in South Africa, and they will solve all the problems we are facing: social development, the problem of crime, the problem of the economy and service delivery. But there are certain things we would like to do based on our our beliefs, our vision for South Africa, there are certain things we would like to do. Having made certain observations, we would like to put in place certain measures. So these measures are being finalized. I'll give you a taste of them, but we start with the observations. What have we observed as a major trend amongst the current coalitions? So in South Africa, we've got two ways of governing municipalities. The one is called the executive mayoral system, where you have an executive committee, the mayoral committee that we have the mayor who appoints the mayoral committee. And the other is called the executive committee system, or the collective executive committee system. In municipalities where the executive committee system is, we have seen those municipalities being more stable. And what happens in an executive committee system? So when you have had elections, the parties are represented in the executive in proportion to the electoral outcomes, in proportion to the number of votes that they got. So executive committee system is more predictable, is more stable across the country. We only have fewer municipalities that are under the mayoral committee system. And it is the municipalities largely under the mayoral committee system where the trouble is. It is the mayoral committee system is called the winner takes all. So once you have a group of parties in a hung council, they come together, they're 50% plus one, they agree on who will be the mayor, they are going to share, they have to appoint an executive committee and share amongst themselves. Whatever the agreement, it's the agreement amongst themselves. Whereas in the executive committee system is democratic, it's based on the will of the people. It's proportional to the electoral outcome. So any party that has been able to receive substantial support is able to get represented. We think that system is more democratic, and it is the system that we are considering at the NEC, that in all our hung municipalities, we should introduce the executive committee system. And I've explained to you what the difference between the mayoral the executive mayoral system and the executive committee system is. So that is going to help us address a lot of weaknesses. In most of the instability in our municipalities also basically stem out of this game plans, the parties changing today, the following parties agree, and the following week or the following month or the following year, a portion of the coalition has broken away. It no longer agrees with these ones. It's now working with the other. And then what does that do? A new coalition comes in. We cannot run development and service delivery with that degree of instability. So the ANC is also considering the introduction of legislation to govern. At the moment, coalition government or coalitions are not governed by any legislation. And this will enable us also to ensure that where there are coalition agreements, they are subjected to some legal authority, they are binding on coalitions, but also they are based on common programs and an agreed program to a set of policies to fix the problems in an area. So the NEC is considering this matter very seriously. The NEC is also considering the issue that coalition governments must not disrupt public administration. We make an observation that in many of these hung councils, decisions that affect administration are never made. And people employed by government, the city managers or municipal managers and the senior managers who are employed and working full-time are not able to do their work because of these changes, these disruptions and the chaos and the in and out. Tomorrow is this party and this mayor. Next week or next year is another party and another mayor. They were considering to particular set of budget or interventions, and now they have to look at a new budget and set of interventions. So legislation to insulate public administration from coalition instability is something that the NEC is considering. And that also goes with legislation to make sure that coalitions can be more stable. You can't just have the change. I mean, every shortest time you have a motion of no confidence, and every shortest time you have a party that just decides it pulls out of coalitions in those terms. So that's going to be extremely important. We are also considering the introduction of a threshold. So what is a threshold? So currently we have, in 2021, we had more than 600 parties and groups contesting local government. There is no threshold about what level of electoral support will qualify you to earn a seat in a council or even earn a seat in the executive. So one of the important areas of the research done by a member of our team was to look at international experience on threshold work, where you have coalitions and you have threshold. They tend to lift the bar. They tend to raise the level of obligation, and parties that have substantial demonstrable electoral support who then get represented, and they have an obligation basically to the citizens and to the electorate. They can't just behave any other how. The NEC is also considering a very important principle that where there are coalition governments, and as we have them now, we must use international experience. And what does that international experience show? The party with the largest votes is the one that has the initiative to set up a coalition government, to invite other parties. But also the party with the largest votes should get a proportional representation with regard to the executive and any other position. We made an observation that the picture in our country at the moment is very mixed. So you have small parties, sometimes even individuals who are carrying the weight that is not proportionate to the electoral support that they got. So it's not democratic in our view, and we also say that international experience bears us that the party with the largest vote must have the first option to be the one, whether it is in the opposition ranks or in the ranks of the governing party or the erstwhile governing party, and those it works with. The electoral outcome must be able to determine who has the initiative and the responsibility to lead the coalition process. At the moment, it is just left out there. So we want to bring in an important democratic principle that you can't just have a coalition government where the party with the largest votes is like the smallest party. And the party with the smallest amount of votes, or even an individual or group of individuals with very limited electoral support, are the ones that are leading government. That is a fundamental principle we are saying. It's not consistent with democracy. It doesn't matter whether it's the ANC, but even if in another municipality we have the party, the ANC is not the party with the largest vote, we have the smallest support. We can't take the initiative to want to lead the opposition. It is undemocratic. We must be able to allow the party with the largest vote to be the one that puts together a coalition. But we emphasize that even the issue of these legislative amendments, that the proportional representation, even when you form this coalition, is something that must be considered and important. We think it will stabilize coalitions where you have parties that take responsibility, not just individuals, but you have a party that takes, if things don't happen, the citizens must know who is leading that coalition and which party should we really heaping the blame on. Yes, there would be others who are participating there, but there must be a single party that bears the greatest responsibility to get a delivery happening in our municipalities. So in that sense of way, what are some of the key things? So we are considering a minimum program, what's called a citizens charter. Wherever the ANC will be in coalition, the basis of that coalition must be a citizen charter. What is a citizens charter? What are we going to do in that municipality? What are the main problems facing the people in that municipality? And if the ANC is the leader, those who work with us must be agreed that these are the priorities for us as the coalition government to address those. That's what the Citizens Charter should mean. But the Citizens Charter must also be open. It can't be secret deal making. We want, in the coalitions we want to be part of, and this is proceeding from here. It must be transparent. It must be clear. Why are we working with this party? Any agreement we reach cannot be a behind-the-scenes deal-making. It must be something we go to citizens. We can publish that coalition agreement. We can publish also what we have agreed. There can't be secret things that we agree on. But we must also agree that we can't tamper with the administration. We can agree on removing, putting people in the administration, destabilizing the administration. So that's also an important consideration. Because today you have coalitions that amongst the things they bargain on are things we regard illegal, basically, interfering in the running of the administration. Coalitions discussing tenders, coalitions discussing removing a municipal manager or appointing a particular senior officials. All those processes are governed by law. We want to be part of coalitions that observe rule of law, that respect accountability, but also procedures of how officials are appointed and how officials are removed if they have done wrong things or if they have underperformed. Officials cannot just be removed because there's a new coalition, because that's really what disrupts governance. We have already spoken about proportional allocation of seats, the leadership of the party with the largest votes, insulating public administration from disruption, and introducing the collective executive system in our municipalities. I want to conclude with a very important issue. You might be asking, so who is the ANC going to be working with in all these coalitions? We have done a full assessment, municipality by municipality, where in all the 80 municipalities, we have done an assessment of who is there. We have analyzed every party or every service delivery forum. We have analyzed every group that is represented in municipalities to make the determination, who are we going to work with and why? So the first principle we are considering is that the ANC will not take a decision to say we will never work with party A or party B. So that is going to be only based on our assessment of what is public interest. And in municipalities, we talk of what is in the interest of that local municipality and what we call national interest. Only national interest is going to be informing our consideration of who to work with. The parties must exclude themselves. So we are finalizing very tight set of rules about if you work with us, you cannot do the following. We are finalizing that right now. It is those rules that are going to exclude the party. So we can't take a decision in advance. We have worked with our arch adversaries. We have worked with our arch enemies to bring about democracy in South Africa. It is the ANC has worked with the Nationalist Party when the country needed to move a step further. So we will not rule out working with any party that can demonstrate that it will be committed to a particular set of principles, but also a particular set of programs. We will not preclude that. But those, what are those? It's what we are finalizing in great detail right now. And some of those principles, I've already referred to them. They also have to do with the conduct of parties, the commitment of parties to service delivery, stability, good governance, rule of law, but also the ANC stands for the transformation of South Africa. So we will extend a hand to the parties or groups, and there are many groups that are not political parties. In small municipalities across the country, there are many groups, service delivery forums. They are committed to service delivery, genuinely committed. We'll extend a hand to work with them. There are also political parties that would be committed to all this set of issues, including the agenda to improve the well-being of people. We will consider those. But there are also exclusions, what we call the red line. There are also parties that we are looking at, we say, but this party and that party, we have these problems with regard to this party. We call that the red line. When we release the decisions and the document that the NEC will adopt today, which we have just presented, you will see which parties are those that we say constitute the red line. There are certain things about parties that we will say, this party, even though we don't have a principle that says we will never work with any party, but we have red lines, a set of issues that with each party we will have to deal with, and openly and transparently, not behind the scenes. So South Africans will know if we have to enter into a coalition, we will transparently discuss. The following things will make it difficult for us to work with you. And the following things will make it easier for us to work with you. If our country requires that in a municipality A or in municipality B, the ANC must work together with this party, we will not preclude that, but it will have to be in national interest and in public interest. So that's really the long and short of it. We will that today emerge from the NEC with the ANC perspective on coalition governments in our municipalities. That's what we are focusing on at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Comrade Makura. We have a house full. I'm very keen to really keep it going as quickly as possible in order to also allow Comrade David, because the paper that he presented is still under discussion. But I will start from my left, Tsidi, Zianda, and then I'll come to Samkelo at the back, and then we will go just in that order. Tsidi?
All right, thank you so much. Tsidi, my dear, Eyewitness News. David, something very interesting about how you don't want discussions to be about tenders and coalitions. Is that the ANC's observation of what's been happening in Gauteng? At the heart of what we've been seeing, is it about contracts and tenders? Is that what the ANC has been seeing? Secondly, why was there such a lack of foresight on the ANC's part? The fact that you are here now means you have no lessons from 2016. Arrived in this position where you must dissect what is actually best. Is there a lack of foresight? Is the ANC taking responsibility? You know, we speak about how you're a big disappointment. Are you not disappointed in yourselves as the largest party in paving the way towards what they're certainly seeing in Gauteng? You spoke about, there's quite a lot that you want to ask me, but I'm going to keep it tight. You spoke about, what are they? The red lines. What are some of those red lines? Thank you.
Thank you, Tsidi. Zianda?
And thank you very much, Zianda from Newsroom Africa. Did the NEC discuss reporting lines? So you want to have one national approach, but what we've been seeing has been a disjuncture is sometimes at a local level, the last person to have a final say is the Gauteng ANC chair, but in another province, it has to have the intervention of national leadership. So what are the reporting structures or lines? And then you spoke about, excuse me, values and principles when it comes to working with parties, these red lines. So for instance, if a party is good at service delivery, but at its core, it's racist, at a local government level, what do you prioritize? So yes, you'll have the citizen charter, but I mean, how crystallized will this this be going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Zena. Is that been something?
Bluntly put, which is the better level, the EFF, the IFP, or the Democratic Alliance? The ANC in Gauteng has made it boldly that they are going into a coalition with the economists that are fighting with the close relationship between the CPA and the EFF leadership. Secondly, the disjuncture in these coalition negotiations. You've got a province of Gauteng that acts as a super province and negotiates on itself with the national leadership of the EFF. What is the uniform approach when it comes to coalition negotiations? The DA has characterized the EFF as enemy number one. Yet again, I insist, who do you go to bed with? IFP, DA, or EFF? Thank you.
Thank you, Samkela. Do I have anybody at the back? No, I don't. So I'm going to come. I will have to come back to you, Goge. I'll come this side. My sister over there. Deb, is your hand up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Please, let's.
Good afternoon. Nomad Nogosi from Soweto. Mr. Makula, you spoke about the possibility of introducing the executive system in the Abraham municipality. The ANC has come under fire for using the system, particularly, or wanting to introduce the system, particularly in the Eastern Cape, because this only came about after the ANC coalition in that municipality lost power. Especially because at provincial level, aside from the Western Cape, the ANC governs, so it has the authority to override the municipality and initiate such a program. So you spoke about, you're looking at the current coalitions now. I want to ask, when do you foresee that you will introduce the system? And I'm not exactly sure of the number of the ANC, how many the ANC is in charge of, or rather running, or part of, in terms of the Han coalition. So I just wanted to find out, when do you foresee introducing this executive system? And I'd also like to maybe know, how was this received by your own members during the discussions today? And then some of the proposals that you made are sort of similar, in line with the two members though that the DA introduced, that will be up for discussion in Parliament. So I just wanted to ask, you don't speak about introducing possibly a threshold for the number of motions of no confidence that can be tabled within a year. I want to just find out, is there maybe something similar to that in terms of just keeping a threshold on the number of months that a mayor can face or a premier can face? And then also, has the ANC maybe discussed the possibility of, I don't know, maybe supporting the DA bills that are currently going to be before Parliament, because it's sort of in line with what you're discussing? And then just lastly, the Deputy President was in Parliament last week, and he basically said that specifically the city of Johannesburg is stable as it is right now. I just want to find out, did this come up in discussion at all, because the current mayor will be facing a motion of no confidence, and just how does the ANC define stable?
Thank you very much. And then I proceed to, Ntebu and then Tando.
Okay, Ntebu with the SAPC. Out of the 8 Ham municipalities, informed by your diagnostic report that brings you here, who should be blamed out of those municipalities? Is it the ANC that has to be blamed, or the voters who are to be blamed? And I'm saying this because some people didn't vote either for the ANC or for any political party, based on the fact that the political system, one way or the other, had failed. Had failed in the sense that, if you look at the provision of services, for instance, it's only those who are better off in society who get the service, but those in the who are seen as the traditional voters of the ANC are not getting those services from in the rural areas, in the township, they're not getting those services. And even the political system failed them again in the fact that if you look at the gap between the rich and poor in South Africa, again, it's as a result of the current political system that we find ourselves in itself, where only the better off in society get a better deal, but the poor and the downtrodden are not getting anything. Who to blame? The ANC or the police?
Thank you very much, Devu. Tambu?
All right, my name is Tando Mayeko from the Business Day. Mr. Makura, you mentioned that the ANC will only partner with parties that are in line with its principles of good governance, stability, and so on and so forth. What are the trade-offs that the ANC is willing to make should they not find itself in alignment with another party that is going into coalitions? And then there's a great anxiety that next year the ANC will, for the first time since the dawn of democracy, its electoral support will fall below 50%. That will force the ANC perhaps to partner with leftist parties at a national level, such as the EFF. Of course, these leftist parties push for the nationalization of mines and expropriation of land without compensation. Just your views on that. And then there's also growing concerns from investors that this ANC and EFF coalition that we've seen in parts of Gauteng and also parts of KwaZulu-Natal will go to a national level, and then that will mess with policy stability or certainty. Could you just mention mention the ANC's views on that, and also the ANC's views on the so-called DA Moonshot Pact, where the party, the official opposition, is gathering other opposition parties to oust the ANC in national elections next year?
Thank you. I don't... Okay. Please go ahead.
Junior Huan from News 24. Just to build on Norma's question, in terms of timeline, Mr. Makura, you said you expect the NEC to adopt the report today. So with the looming motion of no confidence in Joburg, would that then start applying in that scenario? Will we see this, what you presented today, start applying on Wednesday, or would it still need to be deliberated on a bit further?
Thank you very much. I will then proceed. I wanted to see if we can, shall we take, it's quite a number of questions. So let's take a response to the first set of hands, and then we'll have another one. But when we do come back, colleagues, may I request that we try and keep it so that we can address all of the concerns from the various media houses. Over to you, Comrade David.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mashenge. CD, with regard to your question about the observation we have made that there are coalitions that are drifting in the dangerous direction of wanting to negotiate or be involved in unlawful things is an observation we have made. It's also been observed. This has been observed by many people who have written and scholars who have written on this question. Let me just say to you, part of our work was to review government reports on the coalitions that have functioned from 2016 right up to now, and those that have been dysfunctional. We have also reviewed SALGA reports. It's the same, these concerns are coming out of that. We have also reviewed international experience, looking at literature and published articles. This is not just a South African problem, where people think when they engage in a coalition, it gives them the leeway to have access a party to have access to the resources, including through illegal means. So that observation we make is it's not based on one specific case. So you are talking about the Gauteng issue. You probably are talking about a particular municipality or a particular set of. You've got the evidence. This is unlawful. I will advise you to go.
I'm asking if that's what you saw.
No, I'm also advising you. Yeah, if you really have the evidence, because the ANC views this takes a dim view of this. If there's any evidence of coalitions where people are involved in illegal things, it's simply unlawful. What we are saying as the National Executive Committee, that all coalition partners we are working with must know there can be deal making on issues that are governed by law. There shouldn't be disruption of the administration. The procedures of how to appoint officials must be respected. There shouldn't be interference in tenders, because that's breaking the law of the Republic. And where such exists, the law must take its course, and I take very seriously what you are saying. You know, one of the things with the red line, the question on the red line that we draw is where parties themselves have publicly said when they go into coalition, they are looking into this or that. And where we have received reports from our structures that they are demanding, not that they have done, but they are demanding that they want to do this coalition partner they're working with is demanding this or demanding that. We said unlawful things, illegal things must not be entertained in a coalition of which we are part. So I would say that we are dealing with a principle that must apply across the board, where the ANC is part of coalitions. ANC disappointed on not giving leadership. You know, before the national conference, there was a task team that the NEC established, led by Comrade Jeff Hadebe. That task team had NEC members who were representing the ANC in framing the coalition issues. So the ANC had provided guidance, but the national conference was not happy that the amount of things that are continuing to happen outside that framework, or the framework itself, is not robust, it's not adequate, it's not helping us to deal and anticipate problems before they happen. So the conference has mandated this National Executive Committee within 4 months at CD. The conference said we must do this in January, basically. December, January, within 4 months we have delivered on the conference mandate. Do you think we are unhappy with that? Actually, the NEC said, even as it was discussing, that it is very happy that we have been able to put on the table, we will table, the Secretary General will table before South Africans in the coming week a comprehensive statement on the ANC's policy. I am just giving you the different aspects of what we are looking at. So we can't be disappointed. We didn't just wait and watch. We have engaged with the process. It has not been satisfactory. Yes, there are many areas our provinces said to us when we were reviewing. They said there are many areas where they were working with the different parties without even talking to national office. In small municipalities here, the ANC is working with the DA here. In another municipality, the ANC is working with the EFF. You only know about the Gauteng situation. The national picture is that the ANC has been working with the different parties in different parts of the country. But now we will have a national policy. It's not just a framework. National conference said you must have a guiding document which is binding. This is an ANC policy paper on coalitions. It's binding. It will be implemented across the country. The provinces were discussing here, making their own inputs about, in their own conditions, what must be looked at, but there will be one national position of the ANC, informed by this set of core values, this set of exclusions, what a coalition must not do, and the inclusions, what must be the focus of a coalition government. The red line we are drawing as it pertains to different parties has to do with some are ideological issues, others are policy issues, and yet also they are just issues of how a party conduct its own affairs and what the impact of that on a country like ours. I'll give you an example. So if you have a party that does not believe that race is a fundamental issue in South Africa, that black people's exclusion from the mainstream of the economy, or race continues to have a huge impact in the progress of people. If you have a party that does not believe that race is a very important factor, we draw a red line on that party. If you have a party that has no regard for the laws of our country and constitutionalism, and a party that basically believes you can just carry out violence, it has no respect for, as we say, the laws and the constitution of the country, and then it thinks that it should do as it wishes. That would be a red line for the ANC. So we've got a set of red lines that we have identified. Does that mean we can't engage with that party? So what you call which one is a better devil? We are not dealing here with devils. We are dealing with parties that have ideologies, that have policies, but that also conduct themselves this way or that way. And the measuring instrument for us is the broad framework. We pursue the national democratic revolution. We want to transform South Africa into a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous society. And we've got core values, non-racialism, non-sexism, and set of principles. We respect the constitution of our republic. We respect good governance. It doesn't mean there will be no occasions where our members are not involved in violating good governance, but the party, the ANC, the movement adheres to that. So when a party starts to cross the red line that is on that side, it does not mean we can't engage with them in a local municipality if that party and us agree on reasonable things that will improve. But there are conditions. If we are the largest majority in that party, we should have the initiative of setting up government. You can't have a situation where a small party thinks that simply because of this thing called king-making, they are going to... Those are some of the principles that we are considering. There are issues of conduct also in councils and assemblies. If you work with us, you can't be disrupting council meetings. We work together, we are in coalition. We want stable councils. Some of those issues are going to be pretty important. I spoke about the core values. So Samkele, the fundamental issue for us is when we look at each local situation, what is in the public interest? And that public interest is not a secret deal between us and another party. It must be something we can put openly and make a case. Why are we working with this party? One of the important things our comrades all over the country have said is that this framework will help a great deal, because even with them, where they were dealing with these issues, the previous framework did not provide sufficient details. All these things I'm mentioning are actually, I listen to the provinces extensively supporting them, but there will always be a party that there are ANC members who say, but what about that party? That party is very problematic. What about that party? That party is very problematic. We want an objective measurement that is in the interest of South Africans, not personal feelings of how people feel about a particular party. We wouldn't have been a democracy as soon as we were if we didn't extend, if the ANC did not extend a hand to even pull those who were opposed to democracy. So we could end up working with a party that is opposed to certain things, but our judgment will be whether that will benefit the people or not. We have not made a decision whether we are going to work with not in Gauteng, not in KZN. The comrades were saying to us, they are looking at these issues case by case. There's no ANC decision about 2024 elections. The only decision what we've been discussing here is that we are going to 2024 elections to win. So the question about who are we going to go into coalition with in 2024 does not arise. And I want to emphasize that we will look at each party and measure it according to our set of principles, and will this benefit the people of South Africa? Not will this benefit the ANC. We are not going to be in government for the sake of being in government. But if a particular coalition was conceived and has been put in place, it does not meet the standards that we have had, that will be reviewed quite clearly. And I know there is also a question about Johannesburg. We are not dealing with a specific case. I know what the Deputy President said. Incidentally, he also spoke to me on that question he was asked. It said the ANC is going to be discussing this and will also want to have a dialogue. Let me tell you, there are many parties and many groups in society that have got proposals on how to strengthen coalitions. It's not just the DA. So this question about what the DA thinks, so the National Executive Committee is actually directing that the president should convene a dialogue with the different players, not only the parties. You know, one of the important mistakes we must not make, local coalitions are not an issue for political parties alone. Civil society groups must be involved. Citizens groups must have a say. Academics who have been involved very much in these coalitions must also have a say. So one of the decisions of this NEC being considered is that there will be a dialogue on how to manage coalitions in the interest of the people, how to make the reforms, how to reform all these coalitions so that they can really give us results. Otherwise, there's no value in having coalitions that are dysfunctional and that are just taking our cities down and down. Yes, I actually know of the case of the Eastern Cape, where the amendment of Section 12 to make provision for executive committee is being challenged, and that is why we want a common understanding across the country. You know, there are areas where they are called the executive committee system in the Western Cape, where the DA governs. It's not only mayoral committee system there. So for us, it should not be it's not be the issue of introducing an executive committee system to help stabilize municipalities that are hung. Shouldn't be a party. It should not be an issue for parties only. There's overwhelming opinion coming from different sources. SALGA, researchers who are saying that the executive committee system is evidently already doing better. So we are not doing it for the ANC. Even where we are in coalitions now, like in Johannesburg and in Ekurhuleni, we want the introduction of the executive committee system. If it was just about the ANC's interest, we will only be doing it where it will favor us. That's not the case. So I definitely want to dismiss that notion that it is just about where the ANC is not in government. We would like this to be considered. This dialogue and the legislative reforms should be considered with immediate effect. People across our country in hung councils are suffering. And it is also something that we hope Parliament will consider, and that the different parties will also support the reforms. These reforms are good. There may be differences amongst parties about which one. I don't want to talk about the DA proposals. The ANC has its own proposals. So are the many parties. But it is good that all the parties are thinking about it. Ntewu was talking about how many hung councils may be a result of the blame. You cannot blame citizens, Ntewu. If citizens stay away from participating, the responsibility of parties is to go to citizens and persuade them that it is good. I also think that it is important for citizens to participate in a democracy, to make their choices known. To stay away is not good. The ANC is doing that. The large sections of the core voters of the ANC who have stayed away, we know where, in which provinces, in which wards have they stayed away, and we know why they have stayed away. That's why we are working extremely hard to regain their confidence, and that's what our intention is, to regain the confidence of those. You can't blame voters. It's not only ANC voters who stay away. So you say, is it a blame? Do you blame the ANC? No. The different parties are suffering from this issue of their core voters not necessarily voting. That pattern is there. The evidence is there in local government by-elections. It is also there in the results of all the elections. It's a problem that every party faces, basically. What are the trade-offs on these issues, Thando?
If you will, just a very quick one, sorry.
Okay. I was saying, you don't blame the ANC, you don't blame people. Is it because the political system has failed the people, and that's why they're not interested? And this is informed by their living realities on the ground. There's no service, especially for people in the rural areas.
But the answer is obvious. The reason people are stay away is because they are unhappy.
The political system.
The answer is, that's an obvious answer.
I want to keep it at that.
It's an obvious answer.
Yes, I wanted to avoid the dialogue, and we should try and do that as, in general, a rule of thumb. But we can always ventilate the matters further in our future conversation. Were you done?
I was going to Thando. Thando was asking if there will be trade-offs. Should there be parties that end up don't agree, they end up not agreeing with us? Let me say the fundamental emphasis of the ANC is not to be in government at all cost. It's not to end up with trade-offs that put us there in government, but they mean nothing for citizens, or they violate fundamental beliefs of the ANC. So all we're talking about is the minimum set of core principles, programmatic issues and values that will form our approach to coalitions. If we don't get a party to agree with us, we are willing to go into opposition benches. We are not going to be in a coalition government at all cost, even when it compromises the ANC or it compromises citizens. So we are not pursuing trade-offs at the expense of whether this coalition can function in accordance with how we want a coalition to function, and this coalition can deliver. We are willing to go into opposition benches in a municipality and build back and build afresh. You were talking about concerns about, we come from a business publication, so investors. I've explained, the principal approach of the ANC is national interest. National interest and public interest, citizens' interest. So the totality, not just one section of the citizens, not one opinion, but the totality of, will this really help advance the interest of a municipality, the interest of South Africa? What are those interests of South Africa? Will we be able to build a country of which citizens will have a better life, a democracy that's vibrant, that enables people to achieve a quality of life? That's the totality of, for us, national interest. So that's what we will look at. We unlike the DA that has said in its conference that they, as far as they are concerned, they will never work with a particular party. It has never been the ANC's approach. The ANC's approach in history has never been to gang up against somebody. We identify principles. You will be excluded, or you'll exclude yourself based on the strength of those principles. You will say no. You will be, if your intention is to just get into a coalition and be a crook, you will see that it will not work. I won't succeed to be a crook. There is not worthy of being part of that coalition. That's how you will exclude yourself. Those who come into coalitions to think that coalitions are about serving narrow partisan interests of their parties, they won't succeed to do that in a coalition with the ANC. They will not even succeed to end up signing an agreement. We will have so many exclusions in there to protect citizens, to protect governance, that they will end up saying, no, we don't want to really be in such a coalition. And so I emphasize that. We are not nitpicking this party or that party. We are concerned about the country, the functionality of our democracy. And we will do everything to advance the interests of South Africa. This economy must grow. It must provide for the people. And that's the assessment of a democracy. When you say the people are unhappy, if a democracy is not able to meet, or a democratic state is not able to meet the needs of the people, in many parts of the world, you end up having crisis in that democracy. That's what informs us. We don't want that type. A democracy must advance the interest of the people. And those people include those who are called the investors. They are not the only people. We think about them, but we're not thinking only about them. We're thinking about the totality of our society. I think the timelines, may I say, okay, I'm left with the Moonshot. The Moonshot Pact is an ideological issue. I'll deal with that in very briefly. The timelines, we think by the time we conclude the National Executive Committee, the ANC will be able to go to the ground, including to the provinces, including to meet with the branches, but also the caucuses where we have these hung councils, to communicate this line. And this line will apply. Whatever would have been decided will apply immediately. So if you're talking about what's happening in Johannesburg or in another municipality, we are not focusing on what's happening there. We are focusing on providing stability. If it is unstable, it will receive our attention in that kind of way. The DA's Moonshot Pact, we have done a comprehensive analysis in this position paper about different parties. So what is the DA trying to do? So the DA is trying to gather all the forces profoundly and fundamentally opposed to the transformation of South Africa. The DA is trying to gather into this moonshot coalition all the forces, principally all the forces and the parties that are fundamentally opposed to the transformation of South Africa. And the transformation of South Africa in its deep sense that the ANC articulated in its strategy and tactics So are we worried about the gathering place of forces that are fundamentally opposed to transformation? We want, on the other hand, that is why we are discussing, that we're simultaneously discussing the alliance. That is why we are also discussing the work we are doing with progressive civil society. On the other hand, we want the forces, the social forces, organizations, including these local organizations that are in councils, which are genuinely committed to transformation, development, and service delivery, especially in underdeveloped communities that are underserved. We want to gather those together in support of an ongoing program of transformation of South Africa. So what is the fundamental issue facing South Africa? 2024 is the fundamental issue is whether South Africa will, 30 years into a democracy, South Africa will be able to reset and renew these important democratic gains that we have made in 1994. And in our view, the ANC is going to continue to be at the center of that. Not just the ANC, the core democratic forces that have brought about democracy are going to be at the anyone who thinks you can successfully exclude the ANC from building a vibrant and dynamic South Africa where the economy grows and employs more people and where people enjoy a quality of life. Anyone dreaming that you can succeed to exclude the ANC from that, we wish them good luck. That's the moonshot pact. We don't work to exclude. We work to bring people together, including those who may be fundamentally opposed to us or those who want to bring us down. We don't exclude. We want to bring them together. But we're bringing them together in order to provide leadership in a sustainable way for our country. So I hope I am released.
And Thando, I'm not coming back to you. You know Comrade Makura's passion for any project that he undertakes. And we can take it offline, and I can gladly facilitate that. I'm now co-programmed.
That's live pictures coming to you from Boksburg. The Birchwood Hotel is where the ANC has been having its National Executive Committee meeting the last couple of days. David Makura there, the ANC's head of political education, the man in the hot seat, debriefing the media on some of the highlights of the major discussions that were held over the last few days by the leadership of the African National Congress. Coalitions seems to have dominated a lot of what they've spoken about. David Makura making a point of saying that the party will not preclude any party for a potential coalition government, but he did speak about the red line or a number of red lines that they refuse to cross. He says whoever they decide, if necessary, to go into a coalition with would have to be an organization that shares principles, policies, ideologies and core values with the ANC and conducts itself in a certain way. That being said, however, he said there's been no decision about coalitions for 2024. He says it does not arise in discussion. He says their major aim for the 2024 polls is to win. And that, of course, coalitions being a major discussion point. Makura also talking about how coalition politics has worked or mainly not worked in the major cities across South Africa. And he went into some depth about what they think about what they've seen there. He did make a point, however, about the NEC wanting to make the point that they believe that coalitions should be led by the party with the majority of the votes. So the party with the majority of the votes should lead coalition governments, he said. So I'm sure those will make for some excellent talking points over the next few days as people unpack what was decided at that NEC, and indeed if they are able or allowed to decide what rules and regulations should be in place for coalition politics or coalition governments going forward.